When Ribbentrop strode self-importantly down the steps of Hitler's personal aircraft onto the tarmac in Moscow at 1 p.m. on the 23rd of August 1939, he and his entourage were treated as though they were heroes of the Soviet Union. To the German foreign minister's evident satisfaction, the airport terminal was bedecked with the swastika flying alongside the hammer and sickle, while a military band struck up Deutschland über alles. The formalities over, the Nazi delegation was whisked into the city, where that afternoon in the Kremlin, Stalin accorded Ribbentrop the rare honour of greeting him in person alongside Molotov. Even by the prevailing standards of diplomacy, the cynicism with which the two men sat down together with a map to carve up the nations of Eastern Europe between them was breathtaking. The draft pact committed each party not to wage war against the other or to ally itself to an enemy of the other. Far more significantly, it also contained a secret protocol, the existence of which would not be revealed publicly until the Nuremberg trials in 1945. In addition to clauses which ceded Latvia, Estonia, and later most of Lithuania, along with Finland and Bessarabia, which formed part of Romania, to the Soviet Union's sphere of influence, the protocol licensed the partition of Poland into two neat halves, the western slice falling to the Germans, the eastern slice to the Soviets. This diplomatic surgery did not take long to accomplish. After returning to the German embassy to cable the Berghof for Hitler's approval for his handiwork, Ribbentrop was back in the Kremlin by 10 p.m. that evening to inform Stalin that he was empowered to sign the formal agreement. Stalin responded by proposing a toast to Hitler, observing, "I know how much the German nation loves its Führer. I'd like to drink his health." At 2 a.m. on the 24th of August, watched benignly by the Soviet leader, the two foreign ministers put their name to what would become known as the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Cameras clicked and toasts were drunk before Stalin bade good night to his guests, reassuring Ribbentrop, "I can guarantee on my word of honour that the Soviet Union will not betray its partner." Stalin was jubilant that his sphere of influence restored to the Soviet Union so much of the territory of the 19th century Russian Empire that had been lost in the First World War. He was also as spectacularly steeped in bad faith about the deal itself as Hitler. That night, as he celebrated with Molotov and other senior members of the Politburo at his dacha in the forest near Kuntsevo, he was heard to say, "Of course, it's all a game to see who can fool whom. I know what Hitler's up to. He thinks he's outsmarted me, but actually it's I who's tricked him." War, he opined, would pass us by a little longer. The initial reaction of the Russian people to the news of the pact ranged from astonishment to incredulity. "It left us all bewildered and groggy with disbelief," one Soviet official, Viktor Kravchenko, was to write. "The villainy of Hitler had become in our land almost as sacred an article of faith as the virtue of Stalin. The swastika and the hammer and sickle fluttering side by side in Moscow, and soon afterwards Molotov explaining to us that fascism was, after all, a matter of taste." Very soon, however, shock yielded to relief that Stalin had indeed appeared to save them from the horror of war. The German public was similarly bewildered and in some cases alarmed by the news. It was an incredible turnabout, confusion, incalculable danger for all Jews, Victor Klemperer noted. Everyone guesses, waits. The tension is too great. Even a number of the Führer's most devoted acolytes were dismayed that their ideological enemy was suddenly to be treated as an ally. So powerful was this aversion that Hitler felt obliged to reassure his own military leadership. At a meeting with his senior generals in Berlin on the 28th of August, looking worn, haggard, and preoccupied, his voice croaking with exhaustion, he explained, somewhat opaquely, that his deal with Stalin was a pact with Satan to cast out the devil. Seeking to boost their faith in his judgment, he insisted that ruthless military action against Poland had become an urgent political and economic imperative.